Then motion passes. No, we need
All
to
in
vote.
favor?
Thank you.
I didn't have it on there. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, now is the time for public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak? And seeing none, we move on to the action items, 3A. Do I need a motion to approve the July 24th meeting minutes, please?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Got it. Motion passes. Thank you. All right, we're gonna be moving on to 3B, terminal and shelter services. I believe this is gonna be, yep, there's Henry. Director of Maintenance, and Al Burns, Director of Procurement, will talk about a contract for terminal and shelter services.
We put this on the planning committee because Commissioner Fix Sanders asked about it. And it's always fun to talk about future trash. Plan for future trash.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for that intro. Commissioner Albritton, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, thanks for that intro. So I think about once every 4 years, especially when we're needing to re-award the contract for our terminal and shelter service, it's always good to do a complete overview of everything that PSTA does out in the field. And provide some statistics along with that. So the recommended action item, and Mr. Burns will get into some of the procurement information at the end of this presentation, is to recommend approval of a 2-year contract and 3 one-year options for terminal and shelter services with American Janitorial for a total contract not to amount of $4,520,000 for the total of 5 years. So real quickly, I want to introduce, this contract falls under the maintenance department, and then secondly, under the facilities maintenance division. That has a superintendent, her name is Missy Nevitt, and they have somewhat of a small staff compared to what they have to do. It's only got 12 full-time employees that take care of everything from the physical buildings, such as where we are now, to all of our occupied terminals, and any of the equipment and machinery that is used throughout the campus. So things like our bus wash, vehicle lifts, so on and so forth. Also, what they are responsible for, and we also have a full-time staffer known as the passenger amenities supervisor, who's always out there inspecting amenities. Now, what we call amenities is signs, shelters, benches, bike racks, anything that is out in the field that our passengers use is we call an amenity. And as you can see on your presentation, there is quite a bit of what goes on out there. The whole goal of what we try to accomplish out across the county is to, as best as we can, with our resources, ensure that our amenities are in a state of good repair, that they're usable, that they're safe to use, that they're kept up on their maintenance, and that we keep them as clean as possible, which is a challenge. Here's quickly kind of a rundown of everything that is presently out in the fixed route network. Well over 4,000 bus stops. Of course, we've got our Sunrunner service with 30 stations, bus shelters, benches, passenger centers, transfer hubs. What we call a transfer hub is not a manned terminal like a Park Street or a Grand Central, but they are convergence points where a large number of buses offer transfers to passengers. For example, Tyrone Mall, what we refer to as the lay-by just outside our campus here, Gateway Mall, Countryside Mall. Those are what we refer to as transfer hubs, and our 2 park and ride lots. Here is a very nice overview of the county County and some part of Tampa, because we do run Commuter Express, that's the 100 and 300X, of where all of our stops are located. The red numbers, each of our stop has a 4-digit unique identifier number, referred to as a UID. And we encourage passengers and the public that if there is a issue at a stop, the best way you can get the fastest service, because we know exactly what you're talking about, is to just give us the UID number off the stop or the shelter. And then everything's geolocated, and we can quickly get out to that stop. We're going to go through quite a bit of breakdowns of all of the inventory of assets out in the field, just to get kind of an idea of where they're all situated. So this is bus stops by city, as you can see, from smallest to largest. St. Petersburg being one of the largest, followed by Clearwater, Largo, Pinellas Park, and Dunedin. Now the contract I'm going to break down for your recommended approval is not just trash collection. It's actually made up of several other services, and I chose a pie chart so that you could see percentage-wise based off the annual total cost, approximately $902,000 per year, just where that cost is going to. So as you can see, our services under this contract are trash collection, dedicated sunrunner service, terminal custodial services. Those are the folks at our occupied terminals that clean restrooms in the surrounding area. Terminal and shelter cleaning, which is a crew that goes out and on a frequency basis power washes our transfer hubs, our terminals, and of course our shelters. Daytime maintenance, these are what we call on-demand hotshot crews. So you call, we go. If there's something that needs immediate attention, no matter where it is, these are floaters that can respond at a moment's notice and handle any one of the services that I just mentioned. And there is a very small piece of this pie that goes to buffing the floors here on the campus. So I'm going to go through this, and I'm going to break down with some highlights and facts. So first thing, I figured I'd go right to the heart of the matter, trash collection. 21% of this contract goes to that. You can see some of the overviews. It's about 4 to 6 crews who are out there 6 days a week, 56 hours a day. And you can see, and I want to throw some numbers out there before we get to the next slide, which is the statistics slide. 919 trash cans are out there currently in the network. And some are serviced several times a week. Some are serviced one time a week, and it's really based off ridership at those particular stops. Here's a breakout of trash cans by city. Again, smallest to largest, top 4, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Largo, Pinellas Park, Dunedin. Here's some trash collecting statistics. So all numbers that are for FY24 are year to date. And seeing that it's August, we have one more month in this reporting cycle, I don't anticipate that these numbers are going to waver in any dramatic fashion. So, last fiscal year, we were challenged to reduce some of the costs with our trash collection services, and we actually did that. In FY23, there were approximately 1,400 trash cans in our system, and we decreased that down to 919. So just about 500 or 35% reduction. How did we do that? Or why did we do that? First thing is we looked at all stops countywide for based off ridership. So if there was a threshold of what was considered low ridership, and if there was a trash can there, that it was removed, all right? We also looked at stops that had, say, an infrequent frequency, and we decided that we would remove those too. I will say, in some cases, applying that logic, we erred in some judgment. There were stops that had quite a bit of ridership that generated quite a bit of trash that needed to be collected, and so we've put some cans back over time. But we've definitely decreased the number of trash cans out in the system. Tons of trash, as you can see, over the last 3 fiscal years has also decreased. We had a high point in FY23 of 308 tons, and that's come down to about 195. Landfill disposal cost, current rate is $51.02 a ton, so that also has come down in cost. For this contract, I know there was a question. The contract that we're speaking of here is mostly a labor contract and some materials. So when we get to custodial services, they provide the mops, the cleaning chemicals, the janitorial supplies. PSTA pays for the landfill disposal fees directly. It is not part of this contract. There's also a question is, when our contractors collect the trash, do they bring it back here? No, they don't. They take it directly to the landfill. Each of their vehicles is marked with our unique identifier to a dump ticket, so to speak. Shelter and terminal cleaning, again, this is to get out there and make sure our shelters are pressure washed on a routine basis. Typically, we can get through all of the shelters in the PSTA network about 2 times per year. And then, of course, our terminals and transfer hubs. Our terminals, that's Grand Central, Park Street, Pinellas Park Transfer Center, those get done 2 times per week, and then our transfer hubs are done 1 time per week. And, of course, we're always able to send contractors back out there in case something happens and needs to be done again. Here's a breakdown of where all of our bus shelters are across the county. No big surprise, same top 4 as with all the other amenities out there in the field. Benches, we've got quite a sizable amount of benches that are out there, and here's just another overlay of where those are located too. Terminal custodial services represents 26% of the total contract cost on an annual basis. Actually, I believe it is the highest in terms of cost. It is the provision of custodians to provide 7-day-a-week service, 8 hours a day, to clean the restrooms at our occupied terminals, collect the trash at the terminals, dispose of it, and also provide routine maintenance around the buildings and grounds. And they also take care of the driver's break rooms in those terminals that have them, and also the inside customer service areas, cleaning, mopping, and detailing as needed. Sunrunner services, 17%. So Sunrunner was put into service, and obviously our goal in the Facilities Maintenance Division is to keep that service looking as good as the day it opened. And that's why we have a dedicated maintenance crew that is out there 10 hours a day to do nothing but go up and down the entire Sunrunner line and pick up, clean up, touch up as needed, pressure wash as needed, and provide any type of light maintenance repair to keep those stations looking clean and neat. The challenge is with the frequency of service and trying to get a contractor there in between when a bus arrives and when the next one is supposed to arrive, and of course working around passengers. We certainly don't want to attempt to power wash and clean a station if there are passengers standing in it. Don't think we'd get high marks for customer service if we did that. So that's kind of why if there's the perception that I haven't seen anybody look at this shelter in 3 hours, it's because each time we've gone through it, oh, there's a bus there, or there's a bus right behind it, or there's people. And we try and work around them and minimize impact as much as possible. Daytime maintenance support, I can tell you having a daytime maintenance support is actually a value-added service, because most of our maintenance work, the terminal and shelter pressure washing, the trash collection, happens during the overnight hours, because there's nobody at the terminals, and of course traffic goes down to about as low as it can go at night, so that they can work out in the roadway without impacting traffic if they need to clean a shelter. It's pretty self-explanatory. I can give you a couple examples. There's a shelter that needs to be emergency pressure washed. We can dispatch them to that scene and take care of that day. There is a receptacle that needs to be cleaned of trash, so they can pick that up very quickly. A shelter is damaged because of a traffic accident. We need to clear that up from the scene and get it transported back to PSTA. Or if it can be fixed, they can take care of that too. And then, of course, floor maintenance. There is absolutely zero excitement about buffing floors, in my opinion, especially over in the other building and over here. Happens semi-annually, just a quick clean and buff, and then to apply wax annually. And it's the smallest piece of the pie. I put this together because in the spirit of looking at efficiency, especially when it relates to outsourcing versus can we do it in-house. And basically what I did was I utilized the annual cost by our contractor and then applied it to what it would cost PSTA in the terms of labor. As you can see, 42,000 annual hours is what the contractor provides to us each year for these services at the yearly cost of the 902. In fact, the contractor is able to hold that price over the total duration of 5 years of the contract. Knowing what our labor rates here for our employees, not to mention that we would need to hire a significant greater number of employees, but also we would have first year startup costs for vehicles, or pressure washing equipment, trailers, all sorts of stuff. You can see that, and then you can see over the 5 years that there is a substantial savings to have this service provided by outside contractors. In fact, it's about 50% cheaper, but over the life of the contract, approximately $3.4 million if compared to if we did it internally. So, to recap, we've got a large, expansive network across Pinellas County in pretty much every single municipality, some more than others, and it's quite an undertaking, sometimes a challenge. And it's not just cleaning up trash and washing shelters, but here's kind of a menu of all the other things that happen that sometimes don't get any FaceTime or explanation, and there's quite a bit. And again, our mission and our goal here in the maintenance department is to do our part and keep the fixed route network looking as clean and neat as possible. I can tell you that after Tropical Storm Debbie, we found quite a bit of storm debris in our shelters and trash cans, and we happily took that to the landfill for disposal. Trash collection represents really only 21% of the total annual cost for this contract, and 79% is utilized for other services. And just to recap the recommendation, approval of a 2-year contract with 3 one-year options to American Janitorial for a total of $4.52 million. And I will rest for a moment, pass it off to Mr. Al Burns to talk about any highlights of the procurement.
Thank you, Henry. Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Committee. It's a pleasure to be able to come to you this morning. I don't do that often. Just to kind of give you a little bit of background on the procurement part. In May of this year, went to the Finance Committee and asked for additional funding for that, an amount of $450, and it was approved at the May board. And we haven't even spent half of that. Excuse me, we spent just over half of that. We have about $215,000 remaining. So it just want to demonstrate that we're still operating in the contract. The current contract for this expires towards the end of next month. So this is perfect timing for us to bring this before you, and I'm pleased with that. In July, we released the RFP in compliance with all of our policies and procedures. And on July 24, we received 4 proposals, one from American Janitorial, Contractors Enterprise, Emerald City Management, and Z&CJS Inc. I would like to highlight that we're over there are approximately over 15 companies that downloaded the solicitation and took a look at it. In your package, you'll see the evaluation criteria that was used, the qualifications, the staff, the approach, etc. And of course, price was one of those that was evaluated. On August 8th, we had the evaluation committee meeting in accordance with Florida statute, posting, etc. And in your package, you'll see the ranking of all the proposals that were submitted. I would like to say that one of the contractors in your packet, they submitted, however, they did not address all the criterion that was outlined in the scope of work, so their score is reflective of their submittal. I would like to add that American Janitorial has been our contractor for an extended period of time. I want to say about 10 years. And when we enter into contracts, I like to tell the contractor, hey, it's great, good working with you, great negotiating, but if you don't talk to me, that is a good thing, because that means that normally there's some type of issue. And according to the feedback that I've gotten from Missy, the superintendent of facilities, and my colleague, Mr. Lukasik, American Janitorial has been doing an outstanding job. Another point of interest. American Janitorial is a locally owned company. And I'm looking at my the contract specialist, and I want to say they're a woman-owned company. So that means a lot to us from a supplier diversity perspective. We did a responsibility check, and they are in total compliance. SAMS, Better Business Bureau, everything came back good. The fiscal impact of that, I'm going to have Henry talk about that, and also the recommendation. Henry?
Fiscal impact is that these services are paid out of the annual operating budget for the maintenance department. And the total contract cost, once again, is $4.52 million for a contract term of 2-year and 3 one-year options, total 5-year total contract duration. With that, I'm happy for questions.
Chair Albrecht also has a question.
Oh.
I don't know, you want to take first?
Go ahead, Commissioner Albritton.
Yes, thank you. Henry, great presentation. You guys always cross your T's and dot your I's. I like that. So one of the, I guess slide 11 shows the downturn in the amount of trash that trash collection statistics. And you said the reason is you took out some of the trash cans and so forth. Does any of the cost depreciation, is that because now we have municipalities also picking up some of the bigger trash near the bus stops?
I'm going to say no, not directly, but I will follow that by saying, I think we have a great working relationship with our municipal partners, just with their internal code compliance and, of course, sanitation divisions. They're with us on our property track system, which I did not have up here. So they have direct access to us and we to them. So trying to go through all the various levels of getting in direct contact with each other has been removed. Also, we're with C-Click Fix along with many other municipal partners. But I want to say, yes, Commissioner Albritton, if there is something that our municipal partners can help us with and take care of, especially if it's beyond our capability, they're more than happy to help us.
Okay, good. And also, slide 19 was very interesting because I kind of go through that with our city as well. You laid out that a very good argument for outsourcing versus in-house, so I appreciate that. Just wanted to comment on that.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so do we know what the current contract amount is for these services?
Yes, sir. Give me 1 second. The current contract amount was, or is, $3,450,000.
Per year, what is that?
No, over the course, and we entered into that contract in September of 2020,
Okay, so that's over 4 years then?
over 5 years. Oh, excuse me, 4 years, I'm sorry, yes, sir.
That's 4 years. We
4 years.
knew that for the upcoming fiscal years, okay, that we were going to put it back out for solicitation with some of the amended scope of services, with some of the reductions that we put into place.
Okay, and on the fiscal impact chart that you have here, there's all of the years, it's in the summary, not on the presentation. The amount's the same every year. So is there no inflation adjustment? None. So so even though most of this is labor, those are at fixed rates.
Yes, and I believe Al and his department made absolutely sure of that
Okay, so, right, because they bill us they bill us for these services as they provide them.
monthly.
Right, so month 1 hourly rate for services is the same as month 60 hourly rate for services.
That's what they're prepared to sign on the dotted line to assure.
Huh, okay. And then actually, just the last thing that I had, which was not necessarily with this, and you mentioned that we use C-Click Fix. At the different shelters and stops, if I was a rider, how do I know, or how am I informed on how to communicate a shelter or stop issue to PSTA? I know there's a stop number, but if I'm just standing there, what kind of signage, how am I instructed on how to report that?
C-Click Fix, right?
Well, C-Click Fix, I do believe the UID number has some information that you can call our customer service department. But I think that, Commissioner Schulman, you raise a good idea in that there could be better information that says, here's the top 3 ways that you can report any issues directly to us.
I would make it, by the way, I love it when my ID, I didn't have to say it, like, but I would even go one step further and just say, here's C-Click Fix, right? So
Okay.
people, I actually thought people might have to like pick up the phone, call the customer service number and report a stop, and I'm like, well, no one's gonna really do that unless it's horrendous. Versus if they had access or knew that it was on the app, that they go, oh, I could quickly just report this and we'd know about it. Because the more we have eyes in the field, and that's what our customers are, the better responsiveness we can have.
So as an entity that is on C-Click Fix and kind of gets to see what's behind the scenes of being reported, I can tell you a lot of people in this county utilize that to get to the various departments of the municipalities, inclusive of PSA. I also want to extend to the municipal partners, thank you for forwarding to us things that mistakenly perhaps get put with the county or city of St. Petersburg, because I think that's one of the values of SeeClickFix. In addition to having an outlet for folks to report things, is that the various other municipal entities will say, hey, here you go. This sounds like it's your problem. And we're like, thank you, we would have never
So-
have received that directly.
So with that, we need to find a way to let, to mark our stops and let people know how to do that. But I would also suggest that, and I don't know that it's not, but make sure on the SeeClickFix app that we drill down to these different sorts of issues, so that when we're sending services, because we're paying by the hour to send people out, that we're sending the right services. Make sure if it is trash collection, if it is power washing, if it is something's destroyed, right, we can, have those folks help us out.
One of the things I really appreciate about SeeClickFix is the ability to upload photos.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation and bringing this, because we originally, heard about it, and I knew, and as you can see, why I would be interested, because of the number of services and stops and trash cans that are in St. Petersburg. And it may seem small to us, but a lot of the calls or the concerns are the cleanliness of the bus stops, are the, use for, other reasons of the bus stop. And again, there is nothing that says, and SeeClickFix has its issues as well. It really has its issues as well. So I wanted it to be shared with why this is more than just trash for me, and especially when it comes to renewing the contract. And I'm glad it was asked, how long have we worked with this particular company? Because when I came on the board, we were having issues with cleanliness, and it was the same company. And so I guess I needed to find out what is different with this contract than the previous years when we had those issues with the same company.
Right.
So that's why I wanted to pull it. Then I also wanted to, and Commissioner Schulman asked the same question. I saw where everything was fixed for the next 5 years. And you, Mr. Burns, in your introduction said you had to come back to us and ask for an additional $450,000. So it's not written in stone. There may be that option where you come and ask for additional dollars in consideration, because what I don't want to see is a fixed amount, and once they get to that hourly limit, their service starts failing, right? So that's why, when I looked at this, and which is why I wanted you to present it not only to executive, but to planning, just to let everyone know, although trash seems to be the major piece of the conversation, it's important for us to understand that there are bits and pieces that we still don't address on a daily basis. And I did like how you made it very clear that you only had 12 full-time staff in the maintenance department for an operation as large as this. So there may be some other future considerations other than, I totally agree we need to contract out, but generally, a lot of times you don't take care of something that's not your own, and we tend to take care of what's our own. But I do understand the need for it, but again, I'm going back to the fact that when we were having all of those issues when I first got on the board, it was with the same company.
So, Commissioner, I'd like to, and I totally appreciate your questions and your comments. Sincerely, I do. I'd like to talk about the fiscal impact of it. When we brought the contract before the Finance Committee and the board before, there were some anticipated costs that we did not anticipate. Significantly, one of them were Sunrunner. So that was not built into the contract when we initially entered into the contract with American Janitorial. The part about it being fixed, that is absolutely true. The price is fixed, at 902,000, approximately 900,000 every year. But that is not on a number of hours or anything. That is a firm fixed amount. So it doesn't vary. There's no variable in that amount. That is a firm locked in amount annually. And I'd have to defer to Henry. I'm not quite sure how they bill, but I can assure you that that is the dollar amount. And it's not like once they've reached 500 hours, then they bill us extra on the 501 hours. So I'll let my colleague Henry elaborate on how they improve their service, because I don't want to speak because he's like what I like to call boots on the ground. But from the fiscal impact perspective, I did want to speak up.
And can I interject one more, and thank you for that question, and when you mentioned, because of Sunrunner, so I know the city also have the Sunrunner in our budget. We actually contribute to that as well, and I guess I need a clearer understanding as to what our cost covers in regards to Sunrunner, as well as, I know we had an extensive conversation in regards to municipalities, which I wanted to echo on, Newman's comment about, the city, they will pick up. Well, the city still has to pay those same sanitation staff. So there is a cost for us. It's just like, oh, sure, we'll go and get it. No, there is a cost, and they have to monitor that as well. So I guess I'm just trying to see how I can advocate for or investigate of additional finance and funding as in regards to what this looks like. And so for me, it wasn't as much, well, I guess I shouldn't say that. The company that was chose, but the quality that we've seen in the past and that we should expect moving forward.
Let me answer that. What you ask is one of the reasons why I like building relationships with contractors and vendors when we can. So as we know, with outsourcing of all these services, this happened just about 10 years ago. And when you are able to do the same, work with the same people for multiple years, you learn, you get better, you refine your techniques, but most importantly, you know what it takes to do it. I'm not gonna say that there aren't areas that we can improve upon, there always are. But when there's a lot that's changed in terms of what we're servicing, the frequency, I could actually do a whole presentation on everything that's behind the scenes with digital scheduling of routes, frequency heat maps. All of their vehicles are linked up on GPS. Our centralized work order management system, things are photo documented. The day porters or the daytime service support is something we've actually requested more additional hours of and coverage because a lot of stuff happens during the day. So those are all things that I can say that when working with the incumbent for multiple years, while I never can guarantee something, I hope this next 5 years is the best yet. But certainly, I always welcome the feedback on where in those areas that we need to focus and improve upon, because taking care of stuff throughout an entire county, it moves and shifts. I can tell you that there are areas in St. Petersburg that we're focusing on, but since I live up in North County, Tarpon Springs, and that's where I commute down from, I've got a few hot spots that I need to focus on up there because I drive by them, which is fortunate for the commute. I get to see a lot of the county and some of the stuff that's way up there.
But those improvements that you just described that they've made, were all those in place back in 2020 when we?
No, not, well, some were, but again, in terms of technology, a lot has changed in 4 years.
But to answer
Technology has
the
gotten
commissioner's
better.
question, their service has gotten better in the last 5 years, or at least.
I've only been on the board since, 2020, 2021? And we were having discussions of issues then, because that's
Yeah.
when we entertained the conversation of municipalities chipping in to help for the sanitation and things like that. so it wasn't that long ago. So if the contract was signed, what, 2020, you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so, and I got on the board 2021, that was, and so that's the main
No, I
reason
mean,
why.
we definitely we had more complaints back then, and we had more of a, I think, well, a lot more discussions about it. You know, I think it has been documented nationwide, but COVID increased the amount of trash out in cities, and Henry's chart, you see, I think some of the increase in trash back then was maybe a COVID-related thing, partly, but also the municipalities have stepped up in the last year. Just in the last year, we talked about reducing the number of trash cans, reducing the expense, because we knew these costs were going up because of the increased amount of trash, and they have. A lot of these coordination efforts that Henry talked about with the different sanitation departments have just happened in the last year, you know. And then many of the trash cans that we got rid of, Henry talks about it having like a ghost trash can for the first, you take the trash can away and then the ridership maybe still thinks there's supposed to be a trash can there, so they just carefully leave their trash in a little pile where the trash can used to be.
Yeah, that's true.
And then Henry was sending out the crew. But, after a little bit, maybe a month or two, they realized that there's no trash can there. And there is a trash can on every bus that goes by every stop.
Well, thank you for that, not to belabor the conversation, but the reason why, again, I wanted to pull this and have this conversation is because there is more than trash, and the fixed cost still does concern me, because if we're looking at growth, and I'm hoping that, other municipalities are wanting to do the same thing to provide more public transportation, and increase the usage of our bus system. I'm just, 5 years from now, things are gonna be different, and I just don't know what that cost flex is going to look like. I don't have a problem approving the contract, but I wanted us to have that conversation so that we can be reminded, and it can be for the record, that we're still having this conversation 4 years later. And hopefully, we won't be having the same conversation, because an incumbent is in and automatically receives the highest score to get the contract with a not so improved level of quality. So I'm hoping that, moving forward with all the things that you say that you put, that are put in place, we'll see a major difference. But, those are the calls I get, the trash, the cleanliness, and those type of things. So thank you for the time. I appreciate the presentation. Thank you, Chair.
All right, I'm gonna interject real quick, and I know you have
Yeah.
one. It looks like, and maybe I missed it in the slide, that there's a day off from picking up garbage, trash. It says, trash pickup, I go back here 6 days a week. Bus stop trash collection days per week, 6.
Yep.
Slide
Yes, we have a very,
9.
we have a ramp
56
down.
hours a day.
Yeah, it's 6 days a week, but we do have a on-call service for Sundays.
So, my suggestion would, I don't understand why they have a day off, that's one of our major problems, is the trash collection, so I didn't understand why they would take a day off for that, but we do pressure washing 7 days a week or something like that. Everything else was 7 days. And then my other one, so that one, and then the Sunrunner. We're giving a lot of we have a special crew just for the Sunrunner, but yet we still have all the other buses in the rest of the county that's just as important. So, and as she brought up, that St. Pete is covering some of that also. So I just want to make sure that where if there's hotter spots or things like that we may look at. I understand, like I said, we're paying a lot of attention to Sunrunner, but maybe look at everybody else that's just as important. And then they take the trash to the dump, for lack of better words, themselves, and we're sure that it's all of just our garbage in their trucks going there. There's no convenient stops on the way that would I'm not saying they would, I'm just, that's probably the cop in me coming out. And then with the new water ferries and so forth that we're adding, will they be covering in this quote, those stations and piers and so forth as we add these over the next few years? Because there will be garbage cans there will be additional stuff coming into that. So does the ferries fall underneath a different area, or are they gonna get taken in under this contract for the trash generated? I think
That's a
all I
good
have.
question.
So-
On the ferries, I
And
would,
I think with the, I get that we're kind of saying, yes, we understand that they're giving us just this one fee every year. And we're kind of going, that's their problem if they didn't figure in their inflation or the cost of everything going up. And then, did we bring that up to them? And I get that we go, it's your problem, you didn't do it right, but, because then we just come back and we ask for more money, and then we've got to figure out the budget and so forth. Did we make it clear to them that this is your money and have a nice day with it, and then if you start to decline, then it falls back on you guys and that kind of thing?
So, I appreciate the question, and I understand the concern, I sincerely do. One of the things that Henry mentioned earlier is developing relationships. And with all of our contractors, we want to be good partners with our contractors. There is an escalation clause inside their contract, as in all of our contracts, because we want to be fair with the contractor. So let's just say during the COVID period, and this is hypothetical, let's just say there's some type of event that happens and pricing for supplies and things escalate tremendously. There is a provision in there where they could come into PSTA and ask for an escalation. And normally what I do is I ask for supporting documentation before we approve that escalation. That is in this contract. Henry is 100% accurate that they understand that they know that they have left their pricing flat over the course of the next 5 years, and that is understood. But I just want to make sure that I am transparent with the board in letting you know that there is an escalation clause inside the contract, but it is not something that is rubber stamped. They have to provide all the supporting documentation, and that doesn't happen very often in this type of contract. It's more on a commodities-based contract. With that said, the dollar also as a reassurance to the board of directors and to the planning committee and the finance committee, if there are overages in the contract, we have to come back to the board and ask for additional funds. We just can't add money to a contract arbitrarily. That is something that we have to come back to the board and ask for authorization for.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, I did want to, so during COVID, right, there was, and we talked about this when you were just joining the board, that there was an increase in the amount of trash and the number of times people had to come back due to like food containers. There were a lot more people eating out, and there were people using our trash receptacles that were not even taking the bus. They were just walking up and down the street. So I remember that conversation. And then the need for it to come back to the contract because there were additional services added that weren't in the original scope of the contract. So we had to stopgap that measure there. I will say, while I completely agree with Al that it would come back to the board and the committees to increase the dollar amount if it needs to go over, it kind of feels like that's almost a certainty, because usually then it's like, well, who's gonna provide our service? We're kind of stuck with these folks, right? We have 2, we have 3 months, we have 6 months. I mean, we'll put it out for we'll just extend it. So while on paper that sounds like a good way to catch overages, it winds up, I don't feel like it acts that way. I mean, it can, but a service this big, we can't just flip the switch and go with somebody else 5 minutes later with something else. So I did, though, I had a question about how the money is billed each year, because what I said didn't match what was said by you guys afterwards, and so I just want to clear that up. So it's $902,000. That 902, is it just, that is a fixed amount billed like per month? Or is it based on, they send an invoice and say, we did 3 hours of pressure washing at this rate, we did 2 hours of shelter maintenance at this rate? Like, how is it broken out and charged?
It's billed monthly based off the service. So most of the services are frequency based. So clean the terminals 2 times a week. You clean the transfer hubs 1 time a week. So we see those invoiced at those. The custodial services at the terminals is based off the total amount of hours of coverage for each terminal. I actually get 46 pages that I sign off on all of the bus stops that they serviced emptying trash.
Okay, so in, 2 hypotheticals, right? So if they're cleaning less than they originally said, right? Because our riders are picking up after themselves and they bring buckets and wash the shelters down before the rides, like, and everything's just spotless all the time. This dollar amount would then be less, is what we would pay.
We would, if in the picture that you paint, yes, we would decrease the frequency of services, and yes, the bill would go down.
Okay, so the flip side to that, it's messier, it's, you know, stuff's being left all over the place. We are requesting more hours of service. That would go over the 902 then.
Hypothetically, yes.
So it is not a fixed dollar amount for a fixed service. It is a projected dollar amount for, and the number of hours can slightly vary, potentially. How,
Can I?
Yeah.
I see the scenarios that you're pointing out. And my first knee-jerk reaction is to refer to the contract, so that's what I'm referring to, and I'm looking at it. For example, the Park Street custodial services. That is daily, 7 days a week, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. and from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. So the volume of trash, if there's more trash, they still have that obligation from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. And they still have that obligation from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., if that makes sense. And I'm looking at it like the Largo Mall pressure washing. That's 1 time weekly. If it's extra dirty, you know, I mean, that's part of it. I mean, it's extra dirty. I think Henry's expectation will still be that it's clean. And they have been, when they price this, they have been doing this. It's not like it's new work to the contractor. So they have experience, and when they have their estimators and their bidders go out there to look at it and put together these numbers, I'm sure they've taken into account the frequency and the volume of trash, or the amount of effort, the level of effort that it's going to take to get this work accomplished.
And I get that. I think one of the questions that comes up, and it came up with Commissioner Fig Sanders, is, okay, so we're getting the service levels are dropping, right? So in the past, not necessarily that they're now. You know, so are we then requesting that they come out again, and then they're billing for saying, okay, well, we came out a 3rd time to clean Park Street, to pick up stuff because there was more stuff there, thereby the contract's going up, or they're not fulfilling the hours. They're there, instead of being there from 4 to 8, they're there from 4 to 7, but we get billed for 4 to 8 because that was the block, right? You know, I'm just trying to figure out like where, because there was a decline in the service received for a period of time, and I don't understand what the catalyst was that caused that, or how we remedied that, and can we potentially sign a new contract and then slide back into a lower service quality arena?
It's to me, just hearing, it sounds like both of you are sort of correct, right?
That's usually the case.
No, if it gets trashier, the 902 doesn't automatically go up, but because as Al said, it's like basically we're paying the hourly rates for like Largo or Clearwater. But yes, the contractor has the ability to go to Henry and say, gosh, the Largo Trans Center is becoming trashy all the time, and so it needs not just one pressure wash a week, it needs 3. Therefore, I need to bill you more. And then, if he would agree, but you know, it takes a lot a lot of assessment of that is, you just assess, well, maybe your guy that you have out there or gal is not doing a very good job of it, or, or there has to be a review process before we go back to the board to increase the 902, I guess.
And so the 902 is basically the budgeted hours of work for the expected level of service.
Yeah.
Which can go up or down slightly. Not based on the rate charged per hour, but based on the number of hours for any, because again, you can budget something, but you don't know until something happens, until
Right.
you get there, what it's actually gonna be.
Well, to reiterate, when you work with a contractor for a while, and I'm not saying that any contractor can't have periods of performance that may not be up to people's expectations, but you learn from them. So when I see that they've put in what they put in, I'm basing that on lessons learned of doing this for 9 years, okay? Soon to be 10. Lessons learned and what they've seen and encountered out in the field for that amount of time. So that's what I base that on. If this was any other contractor, and I, having been on the eval committee, I saw some proposals that were submitted where the number that they submitted was so low, I don't even know if they would show up, because that's how low it was. And I've seen another one that was so astronomically high, where it was like, if you don't have Gold Star service, I'd terminate the contract within the first month, but they wouldn't have that experience based off what they submitted for a proposal. In fact, they missed quite a few of the key areas of service. They never addressed it in the proposal. So to answer the question, their annual cost is based off what they've learned in their experience over the last almost decade.
Can I ask you a quick question? Did you all have any conversations with municipalities, for example, St. Petersburg, when you chose this particular contract? And the reason why I'm asking, because we're approving our fiscal year 2025 budget, and part of our transportation and parking management budget covers Sunrunner project support, and looking also at what we spent to date. Seems like it was almost $500,000. So I guess I'm just trying to work the money thing in, but again, I guess I'll be watching to see where we are, to see if the money comes back. But that was vitally important to me, is making sure that the same contract that we're being asked to approve for 5 more years, as the time goes, that the services is going to improve, should I say, and then watching what we contribute to that particular project. But we're only looking at the Sunrunner based on this budget, and nothing else other than that. So,
Commissioner, I'll talk to, I'll find out exactly what that 500K number is. I don't know. The only St. Petersburg contributions to Sunrunner that I am aware of are that they provided some of the capital funding for the Sunrunner and the new station that is being built. That they have a small piece of that, but that's capital.
Okay.
And then the only operating funding that I know is coming from St. Petersburg for the Sunrunner is the new extra hours on Fridays and Saturday night, and that is $100,000.
okay, so yeah, what I'm looking at, it is coming from the capital improvement fund, that 522.
Okay, that's for the construction.
That's what the construction piece, okay. All right, so, but I know we had that conversation about helping with the cleanliness and the substations and whatnot. So I wanted to see if I still wanted to push that, but thank you. I do appreciate the presentation. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions or discussion?
Madam Chair, I move approval.
Did you want to say something?
I just,
I think there's a public comment.
there's a public comment.
Oh, hello.
Hi there.
Hi.
Thanks. Yeah, I got a thought on kind of the whole like how
I'm
some.
sorry.
Yeah, hold on one
Could you
second.
please come up and
Yeah.
say your name?
Yeah, hi, I'm Andrew Portnoy. I've got some thoughts on how people can submit trash things better than SeeClick Fix. Like psta.net/clean, and then similar to the the stop number that is already posted on those signposts, they would just put the stop ID, and then they'd select the issue. If it's an overfilled bin, it could get sent to a PSTA employee that is on this emergency alert for these specific issues. If it's anything else, then it would get queued to the right person. And then similar to that, it would be like a text, like, you know, you could text for next bus, you could maybe add a different number, or they could say like something else, but it would be the stop number, and then they don't have to do anything, they know. And then later, like bus drivers, if they have GPS on their buses, maybe they can click a button that says this spot needs to be cleaned when they're stopped there. And then if like way down the line, possibly like it'd be cool at larger stations, just have a button that somebody could click, this station needs cleaning. And then like, C-Click Fix, you gotta download an upgrade profile. I highly don't think that's the right move. But thanks for listening and taking my comment.
Did you get
I'm
his name?
sorry, could you also fill out a public comment card so we have your information?
Okay, yeah, sure.
But thank you for
Thank
the
you, I think that's
suggestions.
a great idea.
It's a good idea.
Henry, did you have something for him to say? Or?
I said thank you for the suggestions. I'll give you let me give you my business card.
All right, yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah, that was a great idea.
Motion, did you have a second?
Do we have a motion? We have a first motion, did you?
I didn't get the second.
Second.
Did-
It doesn't matter.
Roll the dice.
You got a second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Did you get-
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Thank you, that was a great discussion. Thank you.
Thank
Next, we're gonna move on to 3C, MPO interlocal agreement amendment. Brian Miller will talk about an amendment to the MPO interlocal agreement.
Yes, thank you. Madam Chair, as you and other members that are on PSA that are on the MPO know, the every MPO in the United States has to go through a reapportionment process every 10 years for the census to make sure that their number of board seats on the MPO is proportionate to population. And and then that needs to be signed off by the governor after the MPO votes on that. This year, the MPO, Fort Pinellas voted to increase the number of board seats on the MPO to 19. And one of those 19 will remain a PSTA seat. So Whit Blanton sent me the letter that's included in your packet saying that PSTA had to approve and amend the interlocal agreement that we signed 10 years ago for the current makeup to keep our seat. So that's what the action item is. You know, there is an effort to create a regional MPO that is still moving forward, and the makeup will change all again then. And whenever the regional MPO is created, it has already been decided that PSTA and HART will not get a seat anymore on the new regional MPO. That there will be a seat allocated to PSTA and HART, and also HART, I think, that will be a non-voting member, advisory member like FDOT. That's how that will be. But for now, PSTA will have a board member seat under the new 19 member, if we approve this amendment. Happy to answer any questions on that.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Since I'm short in time here, is this, is Fort Pinellas considered a planning board or an implementing board?
A planning board.
Planning.
We do
Planning.
both.
Well, they don't really implement any service to the public. It's a planning.
Planning, yeah.
They-
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Put it
I was just,
that way, yeah.
because we've had other officials in the community that have talked about how planning boards should be smaller, not larger. And I thought this was interesting that this is going from 13 to 19 members, but otherwise I have no objection in improving the.
The regional one is gonna be 25.
25,
Mm.
right.
We need more.
And this one was enlarged because another city wanted to come to the table.
And to be fair, I completely agree with increasing the numbers and increasing the representation, especially on planning boards or implementing boards, that as the community grows, it's better for us to know and have representation from different parts of it, so that we have a fuller sense. I was merely trying to draw a contrast between those that have said that we should decrease the size of planning boards, not increase. So,
So what do you think?
I think we should increase the size of the planning board.
Dave chuckling.
Yes, I
All
wonder
right.
why.
I do need a motion. for
Move approval.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
I mean,
Can we forward this letter to our representatives in the legislature?
Motion passes.
That's inside.
That's,
I just want to make sure they saw it.
All right, we're gonna move on to information items for the
Governor
FY
approved.
'25 budget update, please. Thank you, this will be Debbie.
Yes, well, good morning, everyone. Debbie Leas, Chief Financial Officer, PSTA. And I'm just going to give you a brief update on the budget since we met on a few items last month that were approved by the board. There's a couple things that you all brought to us during the budget workshops, one of which was to improve revenues as it related to the non-property tax revenues. We have succeeded in doing that, especially coming from grant funds. When the board passed last month a change in the taking the monthly cap to $85, we'll be getting more money in on the TD revenue. We're also seeing an increase in revenues as it relates to increased service on our new Spark service on 34th Street. We've also increased our partnerships, especially as it relates to the ferry. And also, we've got great partnerships through UPass programs. One of the other areas the board asked us to look at was tourist development service or tourist service. So included in the budget, we have the ferry service. We also have the proposed Clearwater Airport to the beaches. So all these things are included in the budget based on the input from the board. Our budget is balanced. So we have revenues of $123.7 million, expenses of $123.5. We have an anticipated surplus of $187,000, almost $188,000 for next year. On a budget this size, this is very small, but I'm very pleased that we were able to still achieve that since we reduced the millage rate from .7500 to the .7342. So a couple unknowns here. The biggest one to me is the union negotiations, which are ongoing. We have, and union knows this, everybody knows this, we start out with key assumptions that go into our budget. What that amount is, the union is well over that in their requests. They've actually come up with some very great ideas for us to consider during the negotiation process. So I'm not sure where we're going to land on this, but I'm very confident that we will get to a point where we can stay within our budget. We'll be meeting with them on Friday. Let's hope so. So that's my biggest unknown, how this will impact the budget for next year. Fuel, I mentioned this at the Finance Committee meeting. We now have contracts with HART to be able to purchase fuel over the next 5 years, and we will be looking to lock in fuel prices. So right today, I feel confident it will be within the budgetary amount that I have in there. On the capital side, we have a $46.1 million capital budget with a lot of exciting things like more electric buses, more hybrid buses we just talked about. We just had the groundbreaking on the Sunrunner, so that was exciting, as well as the Flamingo Fair enhancements so that the senior citizens and veterans do not have to go to a customer service center, but they can actually be able to do this online to get their discounts. And of course, I'm very excited to see that the Clearwater Transit Center construction will start in fiscal '25. So we have, as a recap, balanced budget, great new initiatives all the way around on operating and capital. We've improved our non-property tax revenues, and we've been able to reduce our millage just for next year. So with that, I'll take any questions, but that's just a brief update. In a couple of weeks, you'll be seeing me again as we present the budget for the first public hearing.
Question?
yeah, well, no, I just want a comment, thank you very much. I'm so glad that we balanced this budget. And Debbie, with the MOD, we still are very busy, let me put it that
Yes.
way, very busy. It's very expensive. And it, refresh my memory on this, does not, like, each year, or at least this year, is there a 3% increase to our vendors, which are Lyft and Uber? Is that in their contract?
I would have to look at the contract for the percent increase.
I mean, we pay full price for Uber and Lyft,
I understand.
whatever they charge. I know they have been increasing their prices, I don't know if it's 3%.
Okay, because again, that's a concern, and we could recoup that, as we said, and it's being discussed with the dollar increase on the MOD, that's being discussed still.
It was approved by the PSA board.
Okay, good. I made.
It'll go into effect on October 1st.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So when looking at potential tourist services, are we also considering the possibility of going to the TDC for assistance with those tourist services as a separate revenue item?
We have explored that. We've explored that, and it's not, the attorneys for the Tourist Development Council do not believe operating expenses can be paid out of the bed tax.
Understood.
Out of the bed tax, the allocation of bed tax allocated to infrastructure.
Understood. In my mind, if we're adding a service, say the Clearwater Airport, right, so that has a bus that is associated with that, whereas we may already own a bus, kind of like a full-time equivalent for employees, where we're allocating a certain amount of buses to that route. Can they, from a capital perspective, provide the cost of a bus for that route?
We've also talked to them about that. I think, I don't know if she's still on there, Tricia Rodriguez, with the Clearwater Ferry.
Probably not. Hopefully not.
Has talked to them about that for the ferry.
Mhm.
Whether they could purchase a ferry vessel or, dock improvements or capital. And there has not been, to my knowledge, support for doing that.
Or if we're adding a stop at the airport,
Or
or the
the
park and
airport.
ride upgrades for tourists, or, there's other capital outlays associated with making that a premium service. And we have it here as an expense, and I just wanted to see if we'd explored the potential.
Whit Blanton and has committed to me that he, and I will keep trying, keep pushing for that.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, I know yet.
No? Thank you. All right, we're gonna be moving on to ridership and performance. You will be in Jacob. I see you walking.
All right, thank you, Chair, and good morning, everybody. My name is Jacob Labutka. I am the planning manager here at PSTA. Today, I am playing the role of Devin, who would normally be giving you this presentation, but he is out of town today. So today, you get me for this brief presentation, just highlighting just a few recent ridership fun facts. So first up, this is a graph showing our total system ridership compared between fiscal years 22 to 24. 22 being in green on the bottom, fiscal year 23 being in blue, and fiscal year 24 being in red, starting from October to the end of each fiscal year in September. So I think a big takeaway here is that you can see the big difference between fiscal year 22 ridership and 23 and 24 ridership. I will also note that this is for our total system, including fixed route and all of our mobility programs and paratransit. So the trends between years are fairly similar, with the exception of the fall of 23 to 24. There was a slight dip in the fall in between October going into December, and that's primarily due to charging fares on the Sunrunner, which did result in a slight ridership reduction, as well as some service cuts that were implemented in that fall as well. But as you can see, we more than rebounded during the spring break season, particularly between February and April, and our total system ridership for this fiscal year is up 1% from the prior year. My last two slides are mainly focused on our ridership record breaker for the Sunrunner back on Pride 2 months ago in June. So we just decided to make the Sunrunner the primary route that was fare-free, in addition to the Route 9, since it provides service to the other park and ride we have at St. Pete High. But this year, we had a great opportunity to leverage the parking lot at Tropicana Field as a park and ride, since the Rays did not have a home game that day. And so we were able to have some additional ridership from that lot, as well as just from people riding to and from other locations. So shown here on the graph is the blue is the Saturday of Pride of where ridership was, and orange is just a typical Saturday in fiscal year '24. So on a typical Saturday, we'd get about 2,500 trips during a day, but we more than doubled that the Saturday of Pride of over 5,700 rides for the day. So we were really happy to see people take advantage of that service. So shown here, this is the daily activity at the stations that are the closest to Tropicana Field at 13th Street North and South, those pairs of stations on the First Avenues. So we're basically comparing this to both all days in June as well as Rays games. So home Rays games are identified by the orange lines shown on the graph. So there's a few Rays home games that were a little bit more than the average for what a day might be in June, particularly June 8th and June 28th. But you can see that, so yeah, those probably had about 350 or so total activity at those stations that increased several times over to over 1,400 trips at those stations for people connecting to Tropicana Field. So a lot of folks obviously use the Sunrunner, at that park and ride location, but it was only a portion of the 5,700 rides taken that day. So I think that was just due to people just taking it from all across the corridor, but also certainly boosted by the park and ride at Tropicana Field. Those are pretty much my highlights for today, but happy to take any questions y'all might have.
Does anybody have any questions?
Of course.
Of course.
I got to get them all in. It actually, and I appreciate the chart for the daily activity for the Sunrunner. It'd be interesting to see if we could, I don't know if it's worth the time, but overlay actually raise attendance for those home games.
That's interesting.
Because I'm wondering, is it really just attendance driven?
Yeah.
Or was there, are we seeing that there's something else that was going on?
Yeah.
And then, of course, then the next question is, if there was something else going on, is that something that we can address or make better, right? Was it construction activity,
Yeah.
other things that are happening? Because it feels to me like that's like 80% of the way to the answer.
Yeah.
But I'm also just thrilled to see on just the overall ridership that we have an increase in overall system ridership, even with Sunrunner fees and the Sunrunner ridership dropping as expected, showing that we have more system ridership throughout. So
Yeah.
it's if we still had a free Sunrunner, we'd probably be 3-4% ahead of ridership from this time last year. So it's showing that the planning is working and getting a better product in front of more people so that they're using it, which is what we're trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll chat with Devin and see if we can track down attendance at Rays games.
I know Devin can.
Yes, I'm sure anybody can, Devin can. So we'll get on that.
Perhaps one of the other impacts to the other spike on June 8th was my birthday.
I mean,
That was it.
That's,
That was it.
I think we're 95% of the way there now, so.
Okay.
I think we're in calculation.
It was Rays Orioles. I don't know if that was a high capacity game or not on that day.
Well, and really part of it, I do wonder, like, is it, obviously it's helpful to see where the home games are, because we want to see if people are riding it as that service. But then also, was there something else that, and this is true of any station, is there something else going on that we need to pay attention to or help support, right? If we did things a little differently, we could make that better. So that's where the fun part of data is.
That is very true. Thank you for your feedback.
I'm done.
You're done. All right, any other questions? No? Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Yeah. All right, we're moving on to other business. Does anybody have anything to add for other business?
No, Josh, what is your last meeting?
Looking forward to it already, huh?
When is it?
Next month.
Next month, okay, all right, so I can bring you a donut next month.
You guys get, yeah, all like next Wednesday, we're here in the morning, and then we also have the board meeting that night, right?
So,
The public,
September's a little different with the budget hearings, so, September 4th, is the first budget hearing, Wednesday, September 4th, 6 PM. Then, September 18th is the second public hearing, 6 PM. And, for the first time, we'll have the Finance and Planning Committees the same day as the board meeting, so you'll.
So you're setting up cots here for some of us to sleep during the day?
But that way you don't have to come back on September 25th for another board meeting. That'll be the last, meeting.
Do we have no public comment?
Or, I'm sorry,
Are you on the
there's no
note?
public comment,
Yeah, we
it's
don't
not
have
an
no-
action item.
Some of my retirement check.
Yes.
We can talk afterwards.
It'll be huge.
Yeah, we can afterwards. Okay. All right, if everybody's had their comments, then I'm gonna adjourn the meeting. Next meeting is September 18th at 10:30 a.m. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
I still lose.
Thank you. I won't be here at the board meeting because it's our grand opening, gig and for the